Oh, oh. Well, there goes the neighborhood. While it lacks polish and has numerous frustrating aspects, Hello Neighbor is well worth your time looking at if you come across it on sale. If you're looking to get a bit of that cat and mouse game fix where you're the mouse, that's similar to Alien Isolation and in some ways like Mr. X in Resident Evil 2. When the game works well, it's an ambitious little title from a small studio that shows a lot of promise, and with a sequel due out in 2021 is well worth looking into. However, that said, it does have a number of shortcomings, and I couldn't recommend it fully at full price. Hello Neighbor comes from the Russian studio Dynamic Pixels, which is very small and has been around since 2004, and has released over 50 games on iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and other platforms. Some of their other projects before Hello Neighbor, which was actually their first PC and console release, included things like a Tamagotchi game and doing licensed partnerships with companies like Disney and Samsung. Making use of the Unreal 4 engine, the game has a very colorful animated look that allows for the world to pop out. It's a good style that really stands out amongst the crowd of other games. One thing that popped out to me very quickly was the very limited and minimal UI, which I'm always a big fan of. On that note, even though it is very minimal, it did require a bit more work. The only indication that we have of interacting with something is when we get close enough to it, the dot in the middle of our screen grows ever so slightly. If someone doesn't have the best of eyesight, this could be a real challenge for them. From a usability standpoint, I'm wondering how the hell this got through player testing, or even the alpha builds the game had. Someone must have mentioned it, and someone could have easily corrected this. Something that the game could make improvements with the UI was that we're playing as a kid. It could be hard to tell the difference between if we're standing and crouching. There's not a huge difference between the two. So what are we doing in Hello Neighbor? Well, after this little introduction, we go through this house that changes over the course of the game to make our way forward while avoiding the neighbor, whose name is actually Mr. Peterson. Maybe he just wants us to clean our room. Who is he though? Well, throughout the game we're given bits of insight into him that are all told through visuals. There's no heavy dialogue or anything. A lot of it is quite a bit mysterious and puzzling, but that's also the fun part of trying to put it all together. Now, the game does have some expanded universe stuff with other spin-off titles and books, but I'm just going to focus on what's available here. Now, being a kid and having a neighbor kidnap us, it could be very easy for the game to come across as creepy, or like maybe it could be like a kid diddler, but luckily the game doesn't cross that line. From some of these flashbacks, we could see that this neighbor, Mr. Peterson, had a bit of a tragic past. One of the selling points of Hello Neighbor is the use of the AI and how it adapts to us over time. While nowhere near as sophisticated as the AI in Alien Isolation, which I did a video on fairly recently, Hello Neighbor on a smaller scale does pull some aspects from it of adapting to what we do. The two major things that the neighbor will do throughout the game is putting down bear traps at entrances that we frequently make use of, and putting security cameras down being another one. In fact, these are the only real two major ones I saw throughout the course of the game. But it is nice to see, and also you can make use against them, especially the bear traps. There's this tension that the game builds through the UI and the music when we are close to the neighbor. And then we get this groovy little chase music as we're spotted. Now, more or less, when we get spotted, you might as well just get caught and start again, because you're going to be getting caught a lot as we make use of trial and error to make our way forward through the game. As the game goes on, there are multiple approaches to how we could go about making our way through these levels, which is always great to see. And hell, that's not even making use of the bugs, which are plentiful. As we unlock the door in the first act, we enter the basement and the game takes a more interesting, creepy turn. While this isn't quite going into Buffalo Bill's basement in Silence of the Lambs, there's a lot of unsettling things going on in this basement. But we do have a bit of breathing room of navigating our way around, as we don't have to deal with the neighbor for a period of time. There's a lot of questions going on in our mind of what's going on here, who's this neighbor, and the music and atmosphere build up this tension of dread, waiting for the neighbor to return, and it's fantastic. Once we emerge again, this is where the game really starts to pick up, as that first act is more like a tutorial, even though the game doesn't really give you any kind of prompts. This is where we could start seeing more of the adapting AI in action, and getting through the house becomes a lot more complicated of trying to figure our way out. And while it is interesting how many options we have and how much more there is to see, this is where the game gets to its most frustrating due to the trial and error. Because some of these puzzles, well, a lot of them tend to start feeling like they came from the world of the old point-and-click game logic. Now, the logic here doesn't go as far as mixing ethanol with apple juice, giving it to a homeless man so you could steal his change to use a payphone kind of logic, but it is still very weird. I mean, who keeps a wrench in the fridge? I won't lie, I had to use YouTube videos at various points to figure out where to go next or how to solve certain puzzles. And looking through the comments of other YouTube videos or Steam reviews, this is the same case, and for many people, the big problem with the game. I'm totally fine for having a game to be challenging, but there's a fine line between challenging the player on a fair front and one that borders on the line of how the hell was I supposed to know that? And Hello Neighbor squarely falls into that second category, unfortunately. Sometimes it felt like maybe I was having a dark side Phil moment and I was utterly stupid and couldn't figure these out.
I did nothing wrong. I did everything correct.
Until I looked at other YouTube videos or Steam reviews. When I tried this game out for the first time, I actually streamed it, and someone in the chat actually gave me hints about the first act because yeah, it is a lot of weird logic to make our way through. And it really is disappointing because when we get to that third act, that's where the house really expands and things get really weird and surreal. As we progress further and further in Act 3 of Hello Neighbor, we can unlock shortcuts, so when we get caught, we don't have to go the same way as we did before, but can make use of these shortcuts. And this is really great. This is the game at its best, but due to the weird puzzle logic the game carries with it, it's also its greatest weakness. Having all these different routes that we can navigate throughout the house, and as we're progressing forward, unlocking doors to cut down time if we get caught, is really fun, and it gets into this bit of a rhythm that's akin to something like a Souls game or a Resident Evil title, even a Metroidvania, of creating these shortcuts that frankly doesn't get old. And yet the game suffers again by having this wonky puzzle logic that I have no idea that I got through playtesting.
What a shame.
As there's so much potential in this game being really great, and it comes very close to it on a number of times, and again, why I'm recommending it if you find it on a sale, but it's so frustrating at the same time that these weird usability issues and this bizarre puzzle logic really brings the game down. Now, shortly after I played Hello Neighbor, I actually came across the Hello Neighbor 2 alpha that's out, and I gave it a quick spin. I'm happy to say that improves a lot of things from the original, especially on the usability front, but at its core, it still has some of that weird issue of carrying that weird puzzle logic that the original game has with it. Right off the bat, I'm greatly appreciative that they changed the indications of when we can interact with something. It's far clearer from a usability perspective, and that's very much appreciated. I'm still wondering how it never got patched into the original game, but c'est la vie. Climbing up and vaulting up is greatly improved and feels less glitchy and more of a random chance, which happened in the first game, as sometimes my character didn't seem like they wanted to vault over things. And even considering this is a alpha build, that's great to see. And of course, there were some glitches here and there, but well, there was also some in the full version of Hello Neighbor. Instead of having that cheery world hiding something dark, we're back here in a very, well, Halloweenish world with this strange creature to deal with, and we find some interesting things ahead of us. But again, the game makes use of this weird puzzle logic that really requires sometimes experimenting, but after a while, maybe looking on YouTube to get some indication and then thinking, well, how the hell was I supposed to figure that one out? Come on. And one of the top comments I saw for a video on Hello Neighbor 2 is it's unfortunate that this game is still carrying forward this weird puzzle logic that requires you to look up on YouTube in order to progress. Again, a real shame because this game has a lot of really interesting, fun, minimal elements that lead to a really fun experience that's short, but very memorable. It's just too bad it carries with it this bizarre core logic of puzzle design that really holds the game back. Again, that's why I recommend if you find it on sale, by all means, give it a spin. It's great for $5, but I wouldn't pay $20 or whatever the default price is for it. And And while Hello Neighbor 2 does look promising, unfortunately playing through the alpha, it looks like it might still carry that weird puzzle logic with it, which will really hold it back from being a great game. All said and done though, it is a really interesting title with some great ideas. And I'll take that any day from a small studio to trying some interesting things as opposed to a big studio just phoning it in. That's been my video on Hello Neighbor. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe, comment if you played the game, if you found the puzzle logic as weird as I did. Check out my Discord, check out Twitter, you know the whole shebang. Anyways, Boulder Punch out.